with me, toy fans.
Very good, sir. The sentries report Zulus to the southwest. Thousands of them.
The defence of Rorke's Drift during the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879 is one of the most legendary battles ever fought by the British military. During the engagement, just over 150 British and colonial troops successfully defended the Rorke's Drift mission station against multiple attacks by a Zulu force that numbered somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 warriors. The massive but piecemeal attacks by the Zulu on Rorke's Drift came extremely close to overwhelming the much smaller garrison, but every one of these attacks were consistently and valiantly repelled by the British. The Victoria Cross is the highest and most prestigious decoration for gallantry in the British honours system, and a total of 11 VCs were awarded to individual defenders of Rorke's Drift, the most ever received for a single action. These incredible feats of bravery have long fascinated the British public, and this widespread interest was accelerated to all new heights following the release of the excellent 1964 film Zulu, which depicted the Battle of Rorke's Drift to stunning effect.
If it's a miracle colour, Sergeant, it's a short chamber Boxer Henry .45 caliber miracle.
And a bayonet, sir, with some guts behind it.
One person who developed a deep interest in both Rorke's Drift and the Anglo-Zulu War is my own father, who has studied this conflict for decades. When he first saw the film Zulu in childhood, he became enthralled by its tales of heroism and was mesmerised by its otherworldly locale, punctuated by the starkly contrasting armies of the British Redcoats and the distinctly foreign Zulu warriors. Around the same time that my father first watched Zulu in the 1960s, he had also developed an interest in collecting toy soldiers, so this film inspired him to start adding countless Zulu war-themed figures to his collection.
There's no doubt of that.
One of the most prized pieces in my father's vast toy soldier collection is this extremely rare Defence of Rorke's Drift set that was created by Trophy Miniatures of Wales in the early 1990s. This limited edition set is one of only 200 produced, and it features the Rorke's Drift storeroom, redoubt and stonewall diorama pieces, and a total of 24 figurines that represent some of the real-life defenders of Rorke's Drift, including all 11 Victoria Cross recipients and several other notable personalities who were present at the battle. Trophy Miniatures of Wales is a highly regarded yet sadly now defunct manufacturer of die-cast metal toy soldiers. Trophy Miniatures was developed from the dedication and passion of one man, Len Taylor, who formed the company after he discharged from the British Army. From the 1970s through to the early 21st century, Len Taylor created some of the most sought-after collectible toy soldiers in the entire world, and this limited edition Defence of Rorke's Drift set is one of his most stunning achievements.
Rorke's Drift. Take an Irishman to give his name to a rotten, stinking, middle-of-nowhere hole like this.
Trophy Miniatures produced an impressive array of toy soldiers, which were all cast from metal and lovingly hand-painted, which allowed for exceptional attention to detail. They also prided themselves on making models that were historically accurate. This is why some of the characters depicted in their Rorke's Drift set appear different to the way they were shown on screen in the film Zulu, which features a number of inaccuracies, both in regard to the uniforms worn and some of the events portrayed. The two leaders of the defence at Rorke's Drift were Lieutenants John Chard of the Royal Engineers and Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead of the 24th Regiment of Foot.
John Chard, Royal Engineers.
Bromhead, 24.
The Trophy Miniatures version of Lieutenant Chard sees the figure in a standing pose whilst brandishing his revolver, and note his tan-coloured trousers. This is one example of where the movie was slightly inaccurate, because the real John Chard's Royal Engineer uniform consisted of a red tunic and tan trousers, whereas Stanley Baker's costume in the film saw him wearing blue trousers with a red stripe running down the seam. Lieutenant Gonville Bromhead is depicted in a very dynamic pose, thrusting forward with his sabre, while holding his pistol in his opposite hand. Every figure in this set has the person's name and rank engraved on the underside of the base plate, as well as any military award earned, if any. For example, this base plate reads Lieutenant G. Bromhead VC. Trophy Miniatures toy soldiers are also desirable due to their gloss paint finish, making them look much more like the toy soldiers of old, as opposed to the modern trend of die-cast toy soldiers that are mostly produced with a matte finish.
A chap ought to look smart in front of the men, don't you think?
I really enjoy the finish on these figurines because even though Trophy Miniatures was dedicated to historical accuracy, the gloss paint reminds me that these are toys first and foremost, and they should be enjoyed as such. Private 716 Robert Jones and Private 593 William Jones were also both awarded the Victoria Cross for their actions at the defence of Rorke's Drift. Jones 716 has been sculpted without a helmet and is holding his rifle and bayonet at the hip, whilst Jones 593 is firing his rifle from the shoulder, and the addition of little touches such as the rag held in his supporting hand and the small tear in his trousers really help bring this character to life in toy form.
Commissary Dalton, is it?
That is correct.
Assistant Commissary James Langley Dalton was awarded the Victoria Cross for saving the life of a man of the Army Hospital Corps, and for continuing to provide an example of cool courage throughout the battle, even whilst severely wounded. Private Williams VC has been sculpted with his tunic sleeve missing and a wound on his left arm, and this figure has been designed to be displayed next to Surgeon Reynolds VC, who wears an apron and is holding a bloodstained bandage that he uses to tend to Williams' wound. Corporal Allen VC and Private Hitch VC have one of the most emotionally stirring moments in the entire film. Both men were severely wounded during one of the early Zulu attacks, yet after their wounds were dressed, they returned to the fighting and continued to serve out ammunition to comrades throughout the night.
Come on, you slovenly soldier. We got work to do.
The toy soldier of Private Frederick Hitch VC has his arm immobilised by his belt, and he is in a walking pose, carrying ammunition in his other arm, while Corporal William Allen VC has been sculpted in a crouch pose, with one arm in a sling and the other dragging an ammunition box. Corporal Frederick Sheese VC of the Natal Native Contingent has some wonderful moments in the 1964 film, such as when he challenges some British soldiers after they suggest that the Zulus heading their way are nothing more than mindless savages.
Fellow Zulu regiment can run 50 miles, and fight a battle at the end of it.
Yet his best moment comes when Corporal Sheese emerges from the hospital with a crutch in one hand and a rifle and bayonet in the other, and he starts fending off the Zulu onslaught, ultimately saving the life of Lieutenant John Chard. Here Trophy Miniatures have posed Corporal Sheese with a rifle in his hands, about to buttstroke a grounded Zulu warrior. Christian Ferdinand Sheese was awarded the Victoria Cross in 1880, and was the first man serving with a locally raised native unit to receive the award, with the British-only rule being broken under political pressure. Sadly, he died in poverty, aged just 28. The 11th and final recipient of the Victoria Cross at Rorke's Drift is one of the most memorable characters in the entire film. Private Alfred Henry Hook VC is portrayed in the movie as a malingerer who wants no part of the fighting and would much rather get his hands on the brandy in Surgeon Reynolds' medical cabinet.
Out you get, Hooky, you've done your bit.
Yet the real-life Private Hook was a far cry from the miscreant played on screen by English actor James Booth. Private Hook VC was in fact a teetotaler, Methodist preacher and a model soldier, who was actually assigned to the hospital to protect the patients. His elderly daughters were so offended at the way their father had been depicted in the film that they walked out of the premiere in 1964. And I feel as though Len Taylor of Trophy Miniatures tried to somewhat correct this injustice through the medium of a die-cast metal toy soldier. His depiction of Private Hook VC is the only two-headed figurine in this limited edition set, which has Hook with his red tunic and rifle, bravely escorting a wounded Private Connolly away from the Rorke's Drift Hospital. Another key personality at the defence of Rorke's Drift was Lieutenant Ardendorf.
And who the hell do you think is coming to wipe out your little command? The Grenadier Guards?
Lieutenant Ardendorf was also a member of the Natal Native Contingent, and he is notable for being the only soldier on the British side that was present at both the Battle of Isandlwana and the defence of Rorke's Drift. The Battle of Isandlwana on the 22nd of January 1879 was the first major encounter in the Anglo-Zulu War between the British Empire and the Zulu Kingdom. 11 days after the British invaded Zululand in southern Africa, a Zulu force of some 20,000 warriors attacked a portion of the British main column, consisting of approximately 1,800 British, colonial and native troops. The Zulus had a vast disadvantage in weapons technology, but they greatly outnumbered the British and ultimately overwhelmed them, killing over 1,300 troops, including all those out on the forward firing line. The battle was a decisive victory for the Zulus and caused the defeat of the first British invasion of Zululand.
Come all this bloody way to get shot by a bullet from Birmingham.
Shortly after noon on the 22nd of January 1879, 2 survivors from Islandwana, including Lieutenant Ardendorf, arrived at the Rorke's Drift mission station, bearing the news of the catastrophic defeat, and that a part of the Zulu Impi had now turned their attention to the small garrison and were approaching in force.
Are you staying?
Is there anywhere else to go?
Here, Lieutenant Ardendorf is depicted in his Natal native contingent uniform with wide-brimmed bush hat, and he is in a rifle-firing pose, making him an ideal soldier to display on this set's redoubt diorama. Alongside the toy soldiers in this exclusive set are a couple of figurines that represent non-combatants. These include the Reverend Smith, who assisted the defence by helping to distribute ammunition, and a civilian named Byrne, who was shot and killed during the battle at Rorke's Drift.
I suppose there are such things as gifted amateurs.
The toy soldier of Corporal Anderson of the Natal native contingent is sculpted in a running pose that could look as though he's charging towards the attacking Zulu. However, there are rumours that this individual was killed by another defender of Rorke's Drift after he was observed deserting the post. So perhaps Trophy Miniatures designed this character to look like he was running away. Wearing a similar uniform, we also have the only nameless figure in this set, which represents one of the natives that fought on the British side. Lance Sergeant Williams is in a fighting pose, about to plunge his bayonet into a grounded Zulu, despite no actual Zulu figures being included in this set. That's not because Trophy Miniatures never made any. They did in fact produce some excellent Zulu warriors. It's just that this exclusive set was intended to commemorate the defenders of Rorke's Drift, and not the attackers.
Did I ever see a Zulu walk down a city road? No!
Private John William Roy was awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal, or DCM, for his actions at the Battle of Rorke's Drift. And this figure has been displayed with some of the ammunition crate accessories that are also included in this set. My absolute favourite character in the film Zulu is the imposing, stoic Colour Sergeant Bourne. Played by the 6'4" tall actor Nigel Green, Colour Sergeant Bourne DCM was the backbone of the defence of Rorke's Drift. Yet the real-life Bourne was only 5'5" and was nicknamed the Kid because he was the youngest colour sergeant in the British Army, being only 24 years old at the time of the battle.
All right then. Nobody told you to stop working.
Trophy's interpretation of Colour Sergeant Bourne has him standing with his rifle and bayonet at the ready, and they have his rank chevrons correctly applied to the right arm, a small detail that was incorrect in the film.
Why us?
Because we're here, lad. Nobody else.
Frank Bourne would go on to have a long career in the British Army, retiring as an honorary lieutenant colonel, and eventually passing away the day after VE Day in 1945, at the age of 90. One of the truly great things about this set from Trophy Miniatures is this is not simply a collection of toy soldiers. There are some wonderful diorama pieces included too. The stunning centrepiece of this set is the facade of the Rorke's Drift storeroom, which became the focal point of the British defence after the hospital burned down during the night. Here the storeroom is accurately depicted with whitewashed walls, stone steps, timber doors and window frames, and a thatched roof. While I can't say for certain if Private Hook really did carve his name into a building at Rorke's Drift, as he was shown doing at the end of the film, it is a really nice touch to see his name and the year 1879 engraved into the front of the Trophy Miniature storeroom.
60! We dropped at least 60, wouldn't you say?
Most of the defensive positions at the mission station were made up of pre-existing stone walls and a redoubt that was built by the men out of mealie bags. To help build the Rorke's Drift environment around these toy soldiers, Trophy also included 3 stone wall sections and 2 curved walls of mealie bags that can be positioned together to form the redoubt. Either of these positions are ideally suited to the final 4 toy soldiers in this set, which include Trooper Hunter, Corporal Atwood DCM, Private Chick and Gunner Cantwell DCM, who are all sculpted in rifle-firing poses. Giving this set the final touches it truly deserves, Trophy included a host of beautifully detailed little accessories. These include a medical box for Surgeon Reynolds, a pair of damaged wagon wheels, 3 Martini Henry rifles, a couple of British helmets, ammo boxes, mealie bags, 3 Zulu shields, and finally Pip the dog. These stunningly crafted accessories help you build the world of Rorke's Drift around your very own display shelf, and it's attention to detail like this that makes Trophy's limited edition set so highly desirable. People often say that the 1975 movie Jaws gave birth to the modern blockbuster. And while this may certainly be true on a global scale, Britain had its own domestic blockbuster 11 years earlier with the film Zulu. It permeated through English pop culture like nothing before, and the children of the time, like my own father, stopped playing cowboys and Indians in the street that year as they started playing Brits and Zulus instead.
If you meet someone who's not seen Zulu, you kind of think, well, I don't know if we can ever get along.
The film Zulu was the Star Wars of my father's generation, and since they didn't make many licensed movie toys back in those days, toy soldiers became the action figures of his generation as well. So I am supremely humbled that my father loaned me this incredibly rare set of trophy miniatures so that I could make this video. It also reminds me of a trip we made to visit Len Taylor in Wales way back in 1992. For my dad, that must have been similar to the way I felt when I first met Palatoy legends like Bob Breakin and Brian Turner. And Len was so appreciative that my father had travelled all the way from Australia to see him in Wales that he gifted my dad an extremely rare toy soldier that represented an ancestor of Len Taylor's own family who had served in the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879. Where the Defence of Rorke's Drift was a limited edition of only 200 sets produced, this trophy miniatures toy soldier is one of only a handful ever made, and it is now a very prized piece in my father's display. This complete Rorke's Drift set remains one of the holy grails of my dad's toy soldier collection. And if Zulu was his Star Wars, and toy soldiers were his action figures, then this set must be his version of a Palatoy Death Star. So Dad, I am honoured to have had the opportunity to immortalise these toy soldiers in a video for everyone to enjoy. And this presentation is dedicated to you. Love you, mate.